We're going to bring things back together and kick it off for our next presentation. We have three wonderful team members joining us from the Delray Beach Public Library, and they are going to talk to us about the migration from a consortium, and we'll kick things off.
I know we all introduced ourselves, but after Sharon's presentation, I feel like I should do it again and say, hello everyone, my name is Loanis and I am a Cersei survivor. This is really not like prepared at all, because I was like being a bit triggered by what Sharon was going through. So, yes, we're going to talk about our experiences with the Koha migration, and it also feels like, you know, Sharon's presentation is a big introduction to what we are going through, and even though we are part of a consortium, the experiences that we are going to present to you are mostly, they're based on what we experience as our own library within the consortium. Okay, this is better. I got very good. All right, thank you. All right, so Allison and Ben are gonna help me go through the presentation. So we are on the map 4 city libraries in the consortium, and we're 4 independent city libraries, and we all serve our population in differently. So we have Delray Beach, Wellington, Palm Springs, and Lake Park on one side. We are unique in our consortium in that we are part of this group to leverage our buying power, but we don't really have interlibrary services. For example, we don't have borrowing privileges, we don't share our patrons, we don't share our library cards, and so like the Delray patron cannot place a hold in the Boynton Beach Library catalog, etc. But we do like sharing the cost of big ticket items like a library management system or ebooks, you know, things like that. So in terms of population served, you see some of the differences between the number of people that we serve. In terms of circulation, it paints also a different picture. So we can see how some of the things that the larger libraries want to do are not sometimes feasible for the smaller libraries. So we always have to be cognizant of that. Also, while most of the libraries require their patrons to live in the city to be a member, the Delray Beach Public Library doesn't do that. Most people don't know that the Delray Beach Public Library is a nonprofit corporation that is governed by a board of directors. We are privately funded with a partnership that is composed of private donations, city agreements, and state and federal funds. So we do have to raise about 20+% of our operating capital. But that gives us a little bit more freedom that anyone with a Delray, anyone with a Florida address can be a library member of our library. Again, that is a benefit for us, but also puts in a bit of constraint of, in terms of sharing resources for libraries that limit their membership to the people that live in their city. So in terms of total accounts, we see also the numbers here. We just recently extended our due dates, renewal dates to 5 years from 3. And because of the closures in 2020, we automatically extended everyone that was set to be expired during the closures in 2020. That is great. It looks great in terms of numbers, but 2 years from now, a whole lot of people are going to expire. So we have to revisit this, this situation in a couple of years. So prior to migration, and I'm talking about 6 years ago when I became the head of reference at the Delray Beach Public Library, we did a major patron cleanup, and we weeded through all the accounts that were expired 3 years or longer. And that felt really, really good because it was perhaps the first decision made to get our catalog and our data under control. And we did that under Cersei. Yeah. So in terms of total items, you can see our numbers here. And this is where I want to focus more our experience with Cersei. We had, when I became the department head, apparently over 250,000 records in our catalog. And that wasn't really true. We would go to the shelves and not find what was there. Part of it was a migration from Athena into Cersei, and some of the items that were transferred there were really never received. And another issue could have been that we moved from an old building into a new building, and perhaps some of those books were never actually brought into the library. But with Cersei, when I was department head, we didn't have the rights, the access to modify the database the way that needed to be done. And as Sharon said, there's only one super librarian, and that super librarian is Ellen Mancuso. So she's in my head like, Jedi Cersei master. Every time that we needed something done, we had to please Ellen. and it was a great relationship that we developed with Ellen because we really wanted to get our catalog under control. And so we found out
that was a Cersei requirement. Right. That only one person.
Yes, that was a Cersei. Yeah. So we really we started. Once you start digging, you really are not ready to find what we found, and we found that we had thousands of ghost records. No way to identify them. The only way to identify them would have been to do an inventory. An inventory had never been done in the library, and number one, we were terrified of Cersei. We didn't know how to do it. We didn't have the equipment. And even if we had the equipment again, we didn't know how to do it. And we didn't have the staff. We didn't have the staff to do it at the time. So we had to, Ellen provided reports of items that, were like never seen or this and that. And we literally had to go with these paper reports to the shelves and pull out, look for the books, not find them, and then go back and delete them one by one. Allison here, we're looking into patenting this. She created a little 8x11 sheet that had like a cutout the size of a barcode. And after Ellen taught us how to convert a number into an actual barcode font, we were on it. We were on it. But let me tell you, it was over 30,000 records that we had to delete one by one. Then what left, there were items in our collection that were missing information in the item field. And honestly, Ellen, when you were talking about Cat 1 and Cat 2 in Cersei, I had no idea what you were talking about. It was too embarrassed to ask. Because I was like, it was like this was handed to us. But we were really hungry for it because we were the ones at the back end experiencing not being able to make a point between our access points in the catalog and our physical items. And so when we were given this opportunity, when I became the department head and a new library director, we were really, really salivating. Like, okay, we want to do this because, so imagine, and none of our items had cutters. None of our items had cutters. So imagine finding a book in 158.1 and you have 2 bookshelves full of them. And it was like, I want to go home and cry. So we said, okay, you know what? We're tired of complaining about this. Let's do something about it. And so we took the time to fix the 158.1s, and we took the time to fix the testing books and the cookbooks. That was a horror story. And the manga, and, and so little by little, and we're talking about a 5, almost 6-year process before we had Koha, that we had to do this just for our own sanity, just so that we could do our job. And then the staff here is really the shining element of this process, because when we never had access to modify the catalog or implement things the way that we wanted, and then all of a sudden, some of that access is given to us in Cersei, people that were never allowed to touch the catalog, they were touching the catalog. And they were empowered to do things that they knew they were going to do, they were going to make their job easier. It was hard. We had to do items by items, book by book, pull every single book. I mean, it was hard, but we did it. And so we went from apparently 250,000 records to what we think is pretty accurate, 135,000 items in there. Finished with Koha, and this is like, let's just going back and forth, like with Koha, updating the clutters has been bliss. It's really a good thing that we've been able to do. But now all of our adult and young adult nonfiction and biography, they all have clutters now. Every single, 40,000 records, items. We're just diving into the children's collection. With Koha, it's going to be a lot easier. And so we did this in a system that didn't allow us the freedom that we needed to do to make things better. And whereas every time that we asked Ellen, can you please help us do this? And she would send us these emails, and it was like, okay, this is like the course syllabus, everybody. We're going to read what Ellen has to say because it has to make sense to us because we really don't know what we're doing. And it was really not in good faith for us to ask her to help us to undo years of neglect in our catalog. So look what we can do. All right. So migration, the expectations. So after all of that I told you that we went through for 5 years, the expectation is that your migration is going to go so great. And with Koha, it went. I had experience of doing 2 migrations at a much, much smaller scale. One was an elementary school, the other one was a middle school. The elementary school was from Athena to Follett. The middle school was from Mandarin. It started with Mandarin from when it was like DOS prompt. I think I'm speaking too much about this going on, right? So from Mandarin to Follett, and I really, really liked Follett. So I had an idea of what to expect. But then again, here we are with Cersei, and I'm still 5 years into this job working with Cersei, and I'm still very insecure about what's going on. So migration, your data migration is only going to be as good as the state of your catalog. So if your catalog is pristine and everything is where it's supposed to be, then great. Great. And for as much as we were 5 years into really getting our catalog under control, our reality was still total mess. Total mess. There were shelving locations that we didn't even know what meant. There were item types that we really didn't know what they were. So the CDs had 3 or 4 different types of item types, and so you get the idea. So we had to really go in, and the next slide, please. The next, it's like we had to consolidate your patent types. There were patent types that we didn't know, what does this mean? Shelving locations. Oh my goodness. Imagine in Cersei running statistical reports on your shelving locations. and you don't know what they mean. And then you say, oh, okay, this month, I'm going to put these 2 shelving locations as my adult nonfiction. But you forget what you meant to do that month, and then the next month is a completely different. What did I do? What was my? So we had to consolidate that. We had to consolidate the item types and patron types, the shelving locations and the collection codes, and put a lock on it. Like literally, not one item type or shelving location or collection code gets added unless we know about it. Everybody needs to know about it because, and just by doing that, our statistical reports improved within the first 3 years, like 25% increase, because now you're really accounting items that have the proper, have the proper information in their fields. So my recommendation to those of you who are thinking about going into a migration or going into Koha or to the tech support, guiding people to do a migration is first investigate what is the state of your data and then coach people through the process of making it better. Inventory the collection if at all possible. As I said, we couldn't do that with Cersei. And then develop standards for patron data entry. That might seem obvious to us, but we didn't have any control over that. And so the migration allowed us for the time to really think about that. And then weed. Yes, weed, because you pay per item. You pay for bibliographic record, you pay patron record, items. And so, yes, a good weed before migration will help you save somewhat on cost. So it was like late 2018 when the consortium decided to go into Koha. I was really happy that when this was going on in the background, I was invited to look at the presentations and my opinion was asked as part of the staff and not the executive committee. And I was given the opportunity to provide input in which of the presentations I like the best. And so that's also very important to have your staff buy-in to bring them to the presentation so that they can have an idea. So immediately as I was looking at the Koha presentation, I think it was it in Nova Southeast University? My brain was going, oh my goodness. All right, I don't have to ask anything about that. Oh my goodness, this is going to be so great. It was like right after the end of the fiscal year when they made the decision to go with Koha and to finally do the migration. And I was like, wait a minute, now really, what is it that we need to do? What is it that we, I'm so confused, like all this blob of information in front of me. And so I reached out to the Koha team and they sent me this workbook. And immediately we set up a team, and every Tuesday at 1 p.m. the migration team got together and we worked the book. And even before any actual migration was happening, because we felt like we don't have any sense of what it is that is Cersei. We have to start before anybody tells us to do anything. We need to really get ahead of this. And so during that, we found out that there are certain consensus that needed to be reached because of the fact that, we are part of the consortium, we're going to share this catalog, but each library has the freedom to set their systems and their policies differently. And so Koha allows us to do that. One, for example, was the fine limits at the time that we were still saying, okay, you can't use the catalog if you have X number of fines. Each library had a different limit. And then the executive committee made decisions to, make the same fine limit for everybody. Then after migration, another consensus we needed to reach was when we tried to implement the online registration system. Each library has their own library card, but the online registration system is like one patron card for everybody. So we had to reach a consensus on what that library card number was going to look like and what type of access patrons are going to be. And so we had to reach the consensus because if the Delray Library wanted it and Boynton didn't want it, then we couldn't have it, because if it is for one library, it has to be for all. So we really had to work together and present. This is the reason that we want that, and the reason being is that COVID forced us to do that, because we have a lot of homeless population that comes to the library and they don't have library cards, and they would come in and ask us to use the computers for 15 minutes or so, and then we had to go in there and log them in, and that worked great. But then when you're trying to social distance and you're trying to minimize the exposure of your staff into the public section, the online registration system really allowed us to send our patrons right next to us, but 10 feet away to the OPACs and register, and that has been really, really great. Then each library then was able to set up their own systems and their own policies. During those meetings, we assigned tasks to everybody, and we set deadlines. And we created teams within the team. Not one person was in charge of one thing, just to avoid that person saying, oh my God, I cannot deal with this. Because inevitably something happens and then you don't have a team member that is intrinsical to get moving. So always have a backup. Yes, thank you. So before migration, like we said, the migration checklist, they're your best friends forever. They really are. They really are. And then it gives you an idea that you can set, okay, well, look, this circulation parameters is going to be Allison and Liz. Allison is in reference. Liz is in circulation. You have your backup right there. The data entry. Everybody needs to know the standards of data entry. So we had to get a buy-in on all of that. And then the existing reports. Yeah, that was another nightmare. I think that there was, I was just speaking to Ellen right now, and I said, Ellen, we really were terrified of Cersei. And she's like, well, it was really pretty easy to story up. And it was. And so we were, I think one person maybe many years ago kind of like brought the system down and then like screwed it up for everybody. And then we didn't have that, that sense of ownness that we can do this work with this system. So the reports, that was a scary part. It was so difficult to do. Ben is going to talk a little bit more about reports when it's his turn. And then acquisitions and the cataloging and the holdings, you have to have redundancies of people that need to be involved into your migration team. So definitely not one person job. Everybody delivers. Everybody feels like they have input and that it's part of their job to make this a success.
Sorry.
And of course, Koha and Bywater, they really do hold your hand through the entire process. Okay. So during migration, then all of that hard work really, really pays off. Like getting ready and cleaning up your data and just getting things down on paper, and then you hand it off to them. And then you can breathe. Really, you can breathe. I have never experienced, I mean, there were 3 migrations that I have experienced. And even though, Follett, I really like Follett, there was always a lot of work that I had to do in the back end to try to fix things and make it work, further. But this was like, wow, really? They're doing this? All of this, everything is taken care of for us. Mostly a smooth ride because you have to plan for the unexpected. You have to let your patrons know this is what we're doing. You have to let your staff know that this is now happening. You also have to plan, is your network going to go down on delivery day? Is there going to be a power outlet? So, you have to think, okay, what happens if that goes on? So I think the next part is Allison, and she's going to talk to you about hands-on training.
So when she says expect the unexpected, Luanis had an unexpected family crisis just as we were going into our final data extraction and our hands-on training with Bywater. So when that happened to her and she had to step away from the library for a little bit, I stepped in and went to the hands-on trainings with all of our staff. So that way we had somebody from each department in our training, and we could see how each department was going to be affected with the different processes. So you want to identify your workflows before you go into your hands-on training, and keep these processes in mind while you're training with Bywater. You can go to your educator. Donna was our educator, and we would say, okay, well, this is how we do X, Y, Z, and how is this going to look with using Koha? And she would explain that, and then say maybe Ellen was there as well, and she would be like, well, we don't do that like that at Boynton. How is it going to look for us? And we were able to communicate and do all of those things together. You can also strategize with your educator how things will look moving forward and how it can impact your other departments. You can also find your change agents and early adopters. So one of the things that we did at Delray was we started exposing our staff to the demo site with Bywater very early on. And we, as a reference team, started to learn how to use it. And then we would hold little mini sessions with our staff, 15, 20 minutes here and there, show them how to use the circulation module with our cataloging department. We would show them how to upload records and things like that. So we would do it in little chunks so we could expose everybody to how it would look. And so as we would do that, not only did we expose them to it, but they started exposing each other to it. So especially one of our circulation staff members, she came to our training, she's like, oh, this is so great. One of our part-time staff members obviously wasn't able to attend. She goes downstairs on Monday evenings and she shows Carmela how to use the new ILS that we're going to be getting. So they were very excited to be exposed to it early and to be part of that process, that they could have that hands-on training really early on.
Next.
And then after attending all of our hands-on training sessions, and after we did our last data pull, we did our testing site. And this is where we really dove deep with our staff and training them how to use it, because then we can actually use our data and practice and show the staff how to use it. So we would set aside time with different staff members individually or in small groups. We even pulled some items and some dummy cards, and we practiced checking things out, creating patrons, cataloging, uploading records, and all things like that before we went live, because then at the end, there is that last data migration that you do, and then clean up all of our data. So that was our hands-on training experience. And then Ben is going to talk about things we love about Koha.
Do you want me to advance for you?
I've got it.
You got it?
Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Ben Kahn. Again, I'm the Instruction and Innovation Librarian at the Delray Library. And I guess, I want to talk a little bit about the post-migration, what we've experienced since going through the transfer to the new ILS, and just talk a little bit about what we love about Koha. Sharon already mentioned, some of the things that she loves, and I have to agree with many of them. But there's three main ones that I want to talk about. The first one is customizability, and just the range of things that you can do working with an open source system like this. One thing that I've sort of gained a reputation for at our library has been being able to build new reports using Koha, new SQL reports from scratch. And the fact that you can do that in Koha, with Cersei, there were kind of modules that you could work through to put them together using their interface. But to be able to hard code it and do it from the bottom up gives you a whole new level of granularity as to what you can get out of your reports. The three main purposes that I see my reports for are either to audit, to inform, or to discover. With auditing, it's we've been able to take this collection cleanup that Loli was talking about to a whole new level. Now we can run reports to audit the patron types, make sure they're all in the right categories, check to see if there are mismatched attributes with some of the items in our collection. I did one for auditing patron ages to make sure all of your patron birth dates are in the same, are in the correct ranges. So, I found some interesting findings there. We had one patron who was 900 years old because, somebody, they were supposed to type 1996 and their finger slipped and they entered the year 1096. So, that kind of stuff is, a glaring mistake that's an obvious fix. And, once you do, you can clean up some of those outliers. There was another patron that hadn't been born for another 200 years, did a similar issue. Let's see, I've done reports for, finding or fixing unusual barcode numbers. Let's see, what else? Well, recently I've kind of taken things in a new direction. It did, yeah. For some reason, the PowerPoint is showing up different for us, but yeah, the chart you see there, that was one I did to kind of get an overall picture of the age of our collection. So what you see there is a histogram showing, the years since copyright for all the and the count of the items from those years for each item in our collection. So you can see that most of them, average around 6 to 8 years ago. We had a good number since then. Obviously, we keep buying the newer collection, and then it, dies down toward the end. But these are just interesting things you can do. If you've got someone on your team who's mathematically inclined, I have a background in mathematics myself. You can take the information that you get in Koha and if somebody wants to run it through the Python scripting language to try it out on different predictive models using AI, you can do that. Not saying that you have to, but you have that kind of capability and potential with Koha. So that's really cool. Another interesting, this was an interesting story. The other day I was looking at the cost of items in our collection. I found 3 books that were close to $1 million. And how did that get in there? And they were mysteries. It was like, mystery in more ways than one. I also want to talk about, the customizability of the interfaces, both the staff interface and the OPAC in Koha. With Koha on the, it's in the global administrative settings, you have the option to add additional JavaScript, CSS, and HTML to your existing Koha site to determine what you want your catalog to look like. Bywater Solutions has been instrumental in helping us with some of that, customize what items show up in our search, which don't. Again, being that we are a consortium of libraries that are governed differently and don't have that kind of reciprocal borrowing with one another. This is very helpful because then, our patrons, when they do a search, can see just, the items that we have in our collection rather than having to sift through the other libraries as well. So again, the customizability, both of the reports and the interface has been enormous. Second thing that we love about Koha is the level of autonomy that we get with it. We've already discussed quite a bit how, before we were kind of dependent on Boynton in particular, and Ellen, we love you, but the ability to clean up, not have to clean up one by one, to be able to batch edit items that we found mistakes with. That's amazing. It really speeds up our workflows and hopefully takes some load off of you as well. Another thing I like is we've been able to create certain library specific workflows. Particularly with the circulation and find rules, that enables you to create different sets of rules for each patron type and each item type in your collection. And if you separate those item types out by the branches that use them, then that allows you another level of autonomy. One other specific example I want to mention is you have the option to extend Koha and what it can do and create custom patron attributes. This was very useful for us at our library. I'm in charge of our recording studio. And we have a process whereby patrons can come in and use the recording studio on a do-it-yourself basis. So anyone could use it. They just have to go through an orientation with me where I teach them how to use the equipment and make sure they're comfortable on it. And initially this was a challenge because I had everything just kind of listed out on a spreadsheet. And if anybody wanted to, in order to determine that the person had been through the orientation, they had to look at that spreadsheet and then check their library card and make sure it was okay. But then I figured out you can create a custom patron attribute in Koha. So I created one for authorized to use the recording studio. And now not only does that appear right when they scan their library card, and you can immediately check to see that the person's been through the orientation, but furthermore, I can run reports on just the people who gone through the orientation in case I need to send out an email to all of them because COVID has shut down something. Again, the extensibility and the customizability of Koha is amazing, and the sense of autonomy that it gives us has been refreshing, to say the least. Last thing I want to say, which Sharon and others have mentioned already, is just the level of support that you get with this ILS. From Bywater Solutions, of course. I mean, they have been incredibly responsive. They're knowledgeable, they're easy to work with. They aid with so many of the different customizations that we've mentioned so far. They're currently working to help us design a new children's OPAC, and they troubleshoot any issues that you might have, whether it's through their education team or writing code to customize the website. So we love Bywater as well. I also want to mention the broader Koha community. So with an open source system like this, you tap into all kinds of knowledge that you wouldn't necessarily get with a closed system. From the people using Koha at other libraries to organizations like Bywater that help us through all of this. If you don't have someone who likes to build your reports from scratch, there's the Koha Reports Wiki, where librarians have contributed their own reports to solve different come up with different solutions that you can incorporate into yours. Also with the Koha community, I mean, there's the emails that we all get coming in regarding just items and questions that people have for the broader community. They're trying to implement a solution, and they want to get an idea of how this has been done at other libraries. And so you get feedback from everyone in that community. There's been a couple of cases where somebody has come out and said, well, I'm trying to do this and I need a report that'll give me that. And I was like, well, I've done that here. And they're incredibly thankful. And it's nice to have that kind of back and forth on a professional level. On top of that, there's the support and get-togethers that we have with our consortium now. I mean, being able to get everyone together to work on this migration together, that was the first time some of us had met. Being able to come together for summits like this, where we can network and exchange ideas. Again, the level of support and the different types of support that we've gotten through the system have been incredible. And I want to thank everybody. And if you have any questions, now would be. Yeah.
So in terms of the takeaways from our presentation in here, we talked about the data cleanup, all that prep work that that you have to do. Thank you. All that prep work that you have to do before migration. And like I always say, don't wait, because you're gonna think, oh yeah, I have time, and then something inevitably happens, and then you don't. So do that data cleanup and you'll get a handle on your data before you move in. Also, don't wait to implement the other modules. So if you're looking into the ILL module, do it. You're looking into implementing acquisitions, do it during migration. everything that it's available to you, look into it right there and then, because it's easy. Oh, it's gonna be hard. Regardless, implementing new modules is gonna be hard. There's not gonna be easier than doing it while everybody's trying to learn a new system, then running business as usual. You get the idea. The agents of change, you have, get those people that are gonna be the face of the migration and get everybody else, involved and excited about it. And then the customization that we have with Koha, we really has given us the opportunity of take control of our catalog. And for example, I always say, the status quo doesn't really help you grow. And so we have gone through the process of, this is how we always done it, to this is how we can do it, and this is how we can make it better. And so, yes, we thank you. We thank Ellen and Boynton for the support that they have given us prior to migration, because we wouldn't be here saying these things, and successfully done when it was the hardest thing to do with Cersei. And then thank you to Koha and Bywaters for saying, for supporting us during the process and after migration. Do you have any questions? Yes. Hi, Jesse. Jesse, I am hard of hearing, so if you could speak louder.
I love just learning about how you made the transition over to the new system, especially being part of the consortium and working together. My question is for Ben about the reports. I think what you're doing is fascinating, and so I'm interested to know, are you using that data to push out to the public or to your commissioners or to the county about circulation increases or anything like that?
We have used it for particular grant applications and things. I mean, our administrators and our director comes to us with all kinds of questions that we've been able to answer using Koha.
Yeah.
There was one particular example I remember recently where she wanted to know what percentage of the attendees at our technology programs from 2018 to 2019 happen to be over the age of 65. That was a bit of a challenge, but we had a list of library cards for those who had attended, and we were able to plug those into a report and get that number.
Oh,
So,
great.
I mean, like I said, the extent of what you can do with it, can certainly be used for grants. It can be used to inform, like I said, collection development and everything else that we do as well.
I want to encourage you to look at, again, community and sharing ideas. Pasco County, on the West Coast, uses Koha, and they push out something on their library website, so pascolibraries.org, where you can see live updates of circulation numbers, how many books or items they've circulated throughout the year, the number of card holders in the county, and they use it pulling information from reports. I'll share the link with others who are interested, but I love that they're using Koha to just pull that out and inform the entire county. This year we've already circulated X amount of items. We have X amount of adult cards and children's cards, and taking that off from reports.
That is kind of one of the things on my professional development goals for the years, to create some kind of real-time dashboard that pull that out. So.
Okay, you want to see that?
All right. So this is what we have. If you have any questions, our contact information is there. Reach out. Keep our brains. Thank you.